The horror icon is a term that's thrown around a lot, whether we're talking about the survivors who make it through the movie, overcoming the thing threatening their life, or that very creature whose design and presence allow them to become the face of the film and sometimes even the franchise. I mean, look at our options here: Ghostface, Laurie Strode, Leatherface, Sidney Prescott, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Ash Williams, Jason Voorhees, Nancy Thompson. I can go on all day. But I think the best example of this is Chucky from the Child's Play franchise. If you're unfamiliar with the series, Charles Lee Ray, aka Chucky, is a serial killer who in his dying moments transfers his soul into a good guy doll and quickly begins causing mayhem in his new body. The franchise was created by Don Mancini in 1988 with the first movie titled Child's Play. And ever since then, he has written every movie since, even directing each one since Seed of Chucky in 2004 and then becoming the creator of the Chucky TV show in 2021. At its core, I think Don Mancini is exactly why Chucky is the best horror icon. This character and his franchise is his and his alone, even with MGM technically owning the first movie, allowing them to reboot the franchise in 2019. Despite this, Don's vision of the character remains the definitive version. Horror franchises, especially ones with iconic faces like Chucky, have a history of different visions and right disputes. Look at Friday the 13th, for example. It has a rough battle going on with its rights, the screenwriter and director of the original film clashing over it, even killing the online game in the process. Messy. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill left the Halloween franchise after the first 3 films, leading to multiple timelines and stories branching off from the original. Messy. Wes Craven may have been a sole director of the Scream movies, but he was in and out of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, is liking the script for the second one and getting his idea for the 4th turned down. Kinda messy. Don Mancini never left, and when you look at Chucky, it's changed a lot from the original Child's Play, and all of it was done within his vision. Speaking of the original one, let's look at that and the next 2 sequels, which I dub the Karen Barkley is a single mother struggling to make ends meet with her son Andy. She buys him a good guy doll, not knowing that it carries the soul of a serial killer, Chucky. Chucky then tries to take over Andy's body and commits various crimes, but nobody believes Andy when he says that Chucky's the one doing these things. This movie is very slow paced, with the mystery of Chucky being relatively kept up until about an hour in. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is his first dialogue as a doll, if I recall correctly.
Talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid bitch, you filthy slut!
I like this one a lot because even though we know this killer doll, back in 1988, the slow burn is much more understandable because the audience doesn't know whether Andy's telling the truth or not. But of course he is, and Chucky's revealed for who he is, getting killed, and then the movie ends. This is a strong debut for the series and the character. You learn enough about Chucky, and while the serial killer who knows a lot about voodoo is a little weird, it's still a setup for the iconic doll. And it's just a pretty cool horror movie in its own right. If you took away the rest of the series, it would still be good. Child's Play 2 and 3 I say carry a less serious tone than the first movie, but still connects them enough to make a pretty satisfying trilogy. Child's Play 2 has Andy in foster care. When Chucky returns, of course nobody believes him and Chucky begins to ruin his life. The third act is probably the most fun to be had in the entire series, with Andy and his foster sister Cal evading Chucky in the factory where they make good guy dolls. It's this gigantic set piece with a bunch of cool body horror. I love it. You could say it's similar to the first one with the whole "it wasn't me, it was Chucky" thing, but the first one was kind of in this city where crime was kind of rampant, and the second one's in these really clean suburbs, which is the big difference for me.
How's it hanging, Phil?
The third movie takes place 8 years later, with Andy being placed in military school, and honestly the setting here is pretty good, despite them not going as far as I like in terms of character development. Chucky returns back to life in the most ridiculous way possible and tracks down Andy. His new goal is to take over the body of one of the young cadets at the school, Tyler, who actually doesn't believe that Chucky's evil at first. This one isn't as good as the first 2, sadly, but the setting and the character, despite not feeling fleshed out enough, make up for it. The third act is this whole amusement park thing, and it takes place on this one ride, which is pretty cool, but seems like a retread of the second movie. So this concludes the Andy era. The 3 films show the progression of both Chucky and Andy, with Andy growing up running away from him, and Chucky literally refusing to die, the first thought in his head to stalk and kill Andy every time he comes back. These all fit in together well to make a pretty solid trilogy, and changes setting enough to keep it interesting. Now the next 2 movies are completely different in tone and feel, and honestly feel like a completely different universe. They're pretty mixed reception wise in the fandom, but they're honestly part of why I love the series and why I made this video. Bride and Seed of Chucky took the series in a new direction, dropping the Child's Play title and focusing on Chucky first and foremost. The first word most people would describe these 2 movies would definitely be camp, as they're extremely satirical and self-aware, not just about the series, but also about horror and pop culture at the time. Bride of Chucky introduces us to series staple Tiffany Valentine, Chucky's old girlfriend who yet again revives Chucky and ends up turning into a doll after Chucky kills her. The movie is a road trip, with the human leads being 2 runaway teenagers who the doll plans on transferring their souls into. The tone here is a lot more gothic and comedic, a nice change from the previous trilogy. There's an entire doll sex scene that would never happen in the first movie. This is a really funny movie. It ends with the teenagers being freed, and say it with me now, the dolls being killed. The dolls die, but not before Tiffany's doll baby is born. Trust me, these movies are good. Just stay with me now. The next movie, however, completely turns up the satire to 11. Skeeter Chucky starts with Chucky and Tiffany's gender fluid kid reviving them in Hollywood on a set of a movie their bodies are being used for, starring Jennifer Tilly. Not Tiffany's human form, but Jennifer Tilly, the actress. The doll's new plan is to transfer their souls into Tilly, famous rapper Redman, who's directing a movie starring her, and her baby, who is conceived with Chucky's, well, seed. Glenn or Glenda is seen as a boy by Chucky and a girl by Tiffany. Chucky wants the family to kill and Tiffany wants the family to stop killing. Also, Chucky kills Britney Spears and Glenn sees Made in Japan on their arms, so they know martial arts.
Oh my god.
Konnichiwa, Oka-san, Oto-san.
It's an insane movie. Tiffany puts her body into Jennifer Tilly, and Glenn puts their body into the two twins that are born. You won't believe what happens to Chucky though. Like I said, the reception of these movies are mixed, but I absolutely love the direction that they take. Not only because it's different, but because this is what Don Mancini wanted for the character at this time. It's not a spit in the face or a betrayal to Chucky, but a natural progression that he decided to do. And it works for me. I love the darker, scarier first few movies, but I also love the completely unserious tone of these ones. But the negative reception was a bit too much, and then the franchise died for about 9 years until it came back to where the franchise currently is. The Curse of Chucky. This one's my probably least likely to rewatch, but it's still okay. Looking back at it, it kind of serves as a launching point for the next steps in the era while kind of being nothing on its own. All you need to know is our main character Nika is a disabled woman who receives Chucky in the mail. Chucky picks off her family one by one before revealing he's doing it because he's in love with her mother, who he kidnapped but later stabs her in the stomach when he believes her to be the one that caused the cops, leading to the incident which turned him into a doll. So this is why Nika's paraplegic. I'm not a big fan of this reveal. I know Charles is a messed up guy, he's a serial killer after all, but being obsessed and in love and kidnapping someone seems a bit out of character. It was a lot more fun when he was just a killer who knew about voodoo. Regardless, Nika's the best thing about this movie, being played by Fiona Dorff, the voice of Chucky, Brad Dourif's daughter. She's the best human lead since Andy, and it's the first time he focused on one so heavily since then. The tone is a lot more dark and horrific, with the kills being less enjoyable in a comedic sense. So this movie ends with Chucky not actually dying. If anything, he wins, framing Nika for the murder of her family and Tiffany collecting him to go after his next target, Andy. The next movie is a lot better, thankfully returning to Nika's story with Cult of Chucky. Nika's placed into an asylum and is visited by Tiffany, who plants a good guy doll to cause havoc. Andy's here too, trying to uncover the mystery of how Chucky's killing despite having his hidden in his possession. Soon it's revealed that Chucky has placed his soul into multiple good guy dolls, hence the name of the movie.
Now I'm gonna go kill Andy. No, I want to kill Andy. I earned it. I've been through a lot today. You got to suck titty today. Look what happened to me. Hello? Look at my hair. Oh shit, you win. Absolutely. Sorry, pal. You go fuck him up real good.
The movie ends with Chucky winning. He takes over Nika's body, granting her the ability to walk, and leaves the asylum with Tiffany, Andy now stuck in a cell. This one's a huge step up from Curse, adding back in just the perfect amount of comedy while keeping a serious story. It's the perfect tone I think the series should have. I won't get too deep into the show because it's the newest entry in the franchise and I don't want to spoil anything, but it carries that tone perfectly. Nika, Andy, Kyle, Tiffany, they all return but gives us a new protagonist in Jake, who was actually almost tempted by Chucky's persuasive efforts. And I like the show. For a franchise, especially a horror franchise that's 30 years old, it manages to stay pretty fresh. And it's always confident in itself and never betrays the canon. So why is Chucky the best horror icon? Because it has conflicting tones, but it never really feels forced. Chucky himself is something you can play very serious or very cheesy, so him being the connective tissue and the mystery about whether kids are lying about his doll or not, to a movie where Martha Stewart receiving the death penalty is a passing line feels natural.
They're executing Martha Stewart this morning.
If the series made this jump with Universal choosing another director or Mancini leaving the series, it definitely wouldn't feel as good or fluid. Because neither of these things happen, it feels like a true passion project. Plus, Chucky's allowed to be a character that grows with personality. He's not a silent mass killer or a mantle that's picked up in a sequel like Ghostface. We know about his childhood and his life before turning into a doll. He gets a family, he loses that family, he comes to terms with his sexuality. He's a slasher that can carry his own movie. I might as well let the guy explain for himself.
I'm fucking infamous. I'm one of the most notorious slashers in history, and I don't want to give that up. I am Chucky, the killer doll, and I dig it!
And Brad Dourif's performance is also a strong thing about the series. Each time he's giving life to this character that was a good concept to begin with, to the point where it's synonymous. If he passes or decides to leave the role of the character, I won't write the series off as going to shit or being bad, but 100% wouldn't be the same. And that's why Chucky is king of the horror icons. You can try and reboot the franchise with Mark Hamill taking up the role, but the loyal dedicated fan base are in it for the ride with the ones that made it what it is. And if you aren't a fan already, hopefully this video convinces you to be one. But first, before you do that, if you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. It's nice getting my thoughts out, and it's even nicer to have an audience. Thank you, and have a nice one.
What the hell?
Eu disse por nosso amor. Eu disse B, brandosa ideia.